Hi, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay? Amazing, the acoustics. Okay, first of all, thank you so much for still being here at this time. I know it's been a long day, a lot of talks, so thank you for hanging in there. I hope it pays off. I'll do my best. So I'm going to talk to you today about releases painkillers. I'm going to share a little bit of my own pains while working at Blip in this scenario, and how we are already trying to solve some of our pains of actually delivering software, doing the releases itself. So I hope you can all relate a little bit with these pains, and at the end I'll share some other painkillers we could all use, and if you use them, amazing. And I hope everyone enjoys. So first things first, I'm Marta. I'm a delivery manager at Blip. I work at Blip for the past year and 2 months. I work in the Exchange product, so hence the Exchange delivery manager. I've been working as a manager for the past 3.5, 4 years, but my background started as a QA analyst, so I started in the QA area, so software testing and all of that, and then moved towards management or leadership path. And now I'm here at Blip. So why did I think about actually doing a talk around this topic? So I felt all of these pains that are almost physical because let's face it, it was extremely painful in my previous experiences to actually do releases as a QA when things are all manual. So, and I've heard a lot of things like this. Can we do the release tomorrow instead? I'm sure all of you can relate to some of these questions because it can be painful if you're all doing it manually. Or it's Friday, we can't actually do it today. Or it's already late in the day, 3 p.m., testing it. We can't do it today. I've heard this last one personally as a delivery manager. Marta, when will you actually have the time to discuss the release and approve it so we can move this forward? I know some of these can be a bit controversial, but all of these questions and all of these comments actually made me think, like, maybe I should dedicate a little bit of time thinking about this releases issue. Maybe this is a big issue we should try to solve for everyone on the development team, not specifically QAs or delivery managers, but everyone. So what I'll try to do here today is I will explain and give you a little bit of context on how we work on the Exchange channels specifically, some of our own particular pains, and how we are already trying to solve them. So we haven't solved everything, but we are trying to solve some of them with some little things. And I'm also sharing some painkillers that I think we can all use and take advantage of, not just you, but me as well in the Exchange. So you'll see what we're actually doing that might help you, hopefully. And feel free to then share with me other painkillers you also might have. So how do we work at the Exchange channels? For those who don't know what the Exchange is, first of all, so the Exchange is an online betting platform. So you can use the platform to bet against other users, basically. The Exchange channels specifically represents the front end or UI and middleware layers of the system, okay? So I'm gonna explain a little bit how we work. So we own 5 main code bases. We have around 35 people maintaining them and owning them, actually, within the teams on the Exchange channels. We have 3 external teams contributing to our code base. External because they are teams who don't work on the Exchange channels, work on other products or other tribes, but contribute to our code base as well within their projects. Okay, this is some of the tech stack we use on the Exchange channels as well. So this is a bit of the context, but then I want to go a little bit further on and show you a little bit about the development process itself. So our branching strategy is a pretty simple one, okay? In a very simple way, we have master as our main branch. Every time we want to develop a feature, we create a feature branch. Pretty simple, okay? We do the code. we do the unit tests, we do our integration tests. After everything is looking good, we rebase with master. If everything looks good, open the merge request to master. From there, we run the pipeline and deploy it to a QA environment. We use the release branch if necessary. It's not a usual practice, so this is not something we usually do. But if we need to use an extra branch for release, hot fixes, or anything that we might need, we use that branch as well. The development process is covered. It covers everything I've kind of already said. So create a feature branch, develop the tests, develop the code, develop the unit tests, develop the functional or integration tests, open the merge request to master, and then comes the code review process. So you have to open the merge request, wait for the thumbs up, solve all the discussions you have to solve, and if everything looks good, we have a policy of 2 thumbs up. So if we have the 2 thumbs up, discussion solved, we then can accept the merge request. And how would that integrate in our pipeline? So after this is approved, you can now go to the pipeline itself. So you have, after the merge request is accepted, you have a CI build and package jobs that are triggered automatically on Jenkins. So as soon as you accept the merge request, that happens. After the package is created, it automatically triggers the pipeline on Go CD, okay? After all the steps are done, finished with success, you then deploy it to a QA environment where you run your automated tests against you, so your functional tests. The 2 last steps you see there, so the deploy to pre-production and deploy to production, are all automated processes, but manually triggered, meaning you would need the DM or the delivery manager or release manager, whoever it is, to approve that release to move forward to production, okay? So I've explained to you the entire context, and we actually have some pains that we're facing within this process of developing a feature and actually delivering it to production. As a delivery manager, I want things to be delivered, of course, but I want things to be delivered properly, and especially I want everyone to feel comfortable with it. So some of the pains that we've been feeling the most, and I flagged 5 of them because I think these are the main ones and the ones that we have been facing a lot, is the pipeline instability. We have a lot of manual tests still being done in the pre-production environment, so that manual step that you have there, it requires a lot of manual works. We have a bit of difficulties with cherry picking and hot fixes when we have them. We have to do them. We have now more teams contributing to the code base. There are not internal ones, so not just the Exchange ones. And we have some issues around the release management process itself. So these are the 5 main pains that we have, but how are we actually handling them? So we came up with strategies that could solve some of these issues. For the pipeline instability, so we were facing some of this green, red, red, green, green, red, so a lot of flakiness within our pipeline. So what we did is look into all of this context of red, green, and we actually took a step back, and instead of fixing the issues that we were having on the test itself, because the tests were extremely flaky, we actually redefined the test strategy. So we did a bit of a step back. So instead of just fixing them, let's think about a way that we should actually be doing them. Define an architecture for those tests. What tests should we do? How should they be done? So we redid a lot of the functional tests as well. We also created a pipeline itself that runs the feature branch before you actually merge it to master, meaning you create your feature branch, and instead of merging it to master and then run the functional tests there, which led to a lot of red builds, you now have a pipeline that's dedicated to run your feature branch. So you can, before merging it to master, go run your code against that pipeline. It triggers the pipeline and deploys it to a second QA environment that's not promoted anywhere. So it just stays there, but it's good for you to test that your code is good. And then merge it to master. Open the merge request, and then let's merge it to master. We've also created a dedicated Selenium grid. We've had a lot of issues because all the channels were sharing the same Selenium grid, so all the other products also had the same grid as we did. So what we were facing were a lot of unavailability of the grid itself, so other channels were getting the grid very busy. We didn't have the opportunity to actually run our tests against you. And we had a lot of issues with memory and all of that. So we just created our own Selenium grid. It's independent. It works for us. The manual tests, we've just thought about, OK, what are the main tests or the core tests that we need to do before delivering something to or releasing something to production to make this to make our product releasable. So we've just defined a set of core tests. We call them core tests that are now running in our pre-production environment. This kind of saves us a lot of the effort, the manual effort in the pre-production environment, and makes it a little bit faster. On the cherry picking and hotfixes side, so we had the project, the tests and the application code in 2 different projects. So every time we needed to do a hotfix, for example, we had to use an emergency pipeline that doesn't run any tests in it. So because we were having a lot of issues finding the right version of the tests for anything we needed, especially on the cherry picking side of things. So what we did was moving the functional tests and the application code to the same project, and it kind of made our lives a little bit easier in that sense. The fact that we have more teams now contributing to our own code base made us think that we needed to align a bit on the process of reviews and communication for the releases itself. So we now have to get the approval, for example, on the release process, on the review process. We now need to get the approval from 2 owners of the code base for that code to actually move forward, for it to be ready to be accepted to master. Because, of course, these external teams don't have as much knowledge on the code base as we do as maintainers and owners of the code base, which is pretty normal. And, of course, we needed to create channels that would allow us to communicate with them and align dependencies, risks, and everything else between the internal and external teams. So this is something very strategic, nothing major, but it was something that actually helped us because we were feeling a little bit of pain around this. A lot of teams working on this, they are not all here with us. And the final one, the release management side of things. So as you have someone that needs to approve a release to move forward to production, so me as a DM, I need to say that that specific package with that client build or whatever it is ready to be released to production. This is what I want, this is what I need, and there's no impact in it. We needed to define a strategy for people to not have to wait or have to schedule almost some time with me in my calendar to actually review the packages to see if we can do the release. So we needed to find a strategy to get the approvals, discuss any impacts, and we've defined this in a way that works for us. So the DMs and the QAs get together and actually discuss this whenever in a process that for us kind of works. But we need to think about an automated way of making this work because it's not good that you always need to be physically there. To approve anything. Like, we need to find a way to make automation work for this as well. And we're working on that. It's still ongoing. It's an ongoing process, but we're getting there. So these are all the things we have done already to fix some of those pains that we had. Again, still a long way to go, but these are small things that we've done that actually makes us a little bit better and makes releases less painful for us, or to deliver software. It's not that painful anymore in those little aspects. But there are other painkillers that you can use if you don't use them already, because you might already been using these techniques, because I'm just sharing with you techniques that I'm also exploring for the exchange to make these releases not stressful, not painful at all for anyone. So this is something we're all feeling. So I'm sharing with you some tips. Blue-green deployment. This, for me, is a very interesting technique that we are actually trying to see if we can get it to actually use it and get it working in the exchange channels. And this is nothing more than having, for example, one data center, you have 2 in your, for example, and one of them would have a new version of the software, so a new version of your product, with 100% of traffic, for example, whatever you want to, the amount you want to have there. And you would have the second one, the green one, with the previous version, with no traffic at all, and that would be just your fallback. So you'd have one with a new version, deploy it there, put every customer there, and you would have the other one with zero traffic with the old version. And then you can move the traffic around however you want. It's literally just, if you find an issue, just go back to the fallback one, and of course then increase the traffic on either, or decrease. But it requires some things, okay? It's not that simple. So you would have to have the capacity to have the data centers. They need to be able to handle all that traffic for the amount of time that you need. You can set an automated way of moving that traffic around, but for the amount of time that you would need, they need to be able to handle that. There's no other way. And you would have to have the two data centers completely independent from each other. They can't depend on each other. They need to be independent. One needs to work without the other, okay, basically. And why would you use this technique? So if you want to roll back faster, if anything goes wrong in your application, you now find an issue in the application, some customer is complaining, you can just move all the traffic to the previous version on the other DC, for example. Okay, so it's very traffic-oriented, basically, so it's pretty easy to do. And you would, of course, have more confidence on the deploys you're doing, basically. So this is a very interesting technique. But the other one you can also use is Canary Releases. So this technique is very interesting because it's also related to the deploys, okay? And it's a technique that you can use to reduce the risk of introducing new versions of your product or your system or application by just exposing it to a small amount of users or a limited amount of users or set of. You define it by machine percentage. You would set that you want to do that release of that version just for 20% of your machines, the ones you have available. And that percentage of machines would have your version, your new version. You can test, and then you can, for example, even set that you just want to have all the .pt requests, for example, going to those machines. So you would have only the .pt or geolocation-based, you would have the PT users going to that machine. And you could, it's very cool because you would be reducing the risk of actually doing a release because it doesn't affect all the users. So you're just affecting those users that go to that 20% of machines that you have available. And within those 20% is always only those .pt ones. And you can monitor the release. You can see if anything is going wrong. You can see if there's any error rates increasing. You can see a lot of things, and you can control all of that. If everything goes well, nothing is being flagged, all looking good, you can deploy to the rest of the machines. That would be just an extra step on your pipeline. You would have a button there for the Canary release, and then you would have the production release after that, okay? So it's just a deploy, another step, okay, in your pipeline. Another technique that I find very useful and that we already use it on Blip is the feature throttles, or toggles, or flags, whatever you want to call it, it's the same. It's a technique that's related to delivering features that can be easily enabled or disabled. So basically what you do is define the percentage. This is done in a CMS application. And what you basically do is control the percentage of users that can actually see the new feature. This is development oriented, okay? So just those specific users that you set within the criteria that you set. For example, you just want Spain users that are looking into football matches, for example, to see the new feature. You can just simply put there, all the users are seeing the new feature. You can say just 50% or nothing if you want to switch it off, like 0. It's very fast to actually do this work. And product owners get extremely excited about this because they can also do this change, okay? It's very powerful. And you can also use dynamic toggles. This is a little bit, it's a dynamic side of the flags, let's call it, or the throttles or the toggles itself. So let's make it dynamic. So what this does, you're able to switch on or off the feature toggles or the throttles without actually affecting the user. So the feature will only appear to you if you are testing the application with a specific cookie or a specific URL parameter or query parameter or a specific header if you're testing an API that you inject if you're testing an API or a service. It's pretty simple to implement. This is just an example that you can find, and you can find many more. I think this example is pretty simple and actually shows how that works. So you just inject in the code, you would have a validation on the code. That would be if you have this specific cookie, or if you use a specific parameter or a header, you would see the feature, and you can test it in production. That is the most powerful thing about this feature, this technique, is that you can test this in production, but only you can actually see it. The users are not affected at all, but this is in production. So it's a very powerful technique. And you're also able to deliver code incrementally, even though it's kind of dead code because it's not actually doing anything for the user. But for us, it's extremely powerful as development teams, and even for the product and business, that you can do some internal testing, for example, with them. They just need to do the cookie set, and it works. It's very good. And another thing you can also do, and this is good if you do it right, the release management side of things, if you actually do it right, and it works very well for big projects. So if to actually do this right, it's something that you need to perfect with time, but to actually do this right, you need to be able to anticipate all impacts and risks when doing any release, okay? So you need to be able to do a lot of anticipation. You need to be able to, you need to be prepared. Like, don't get me wrong, I want to deliver things, I want to get things out there, but as important as that is, I need also to be able to anticipate any problems that might come up out of that, okay? So I need to be able to actually react to the issues, so I need to be prepared. The approval process, that should be as automated as possible, so that's one of the main things that we need to do to get those approvals specific and get everyone involved. Like everyone that has any impact on that specific feature needs to be able to be there, and you need to count on them to actually be there and provide all the information you might need. Okay, get everyone that needs to be there, there. QAs. QAs are a powerful strength. They also have a lot of ownership of the releases. So they validate the releases itself, and they should be your right hand when it comes to approval release. They really are the people you should trust to deliver anything. I trust my QAs for everything, and if they say that that build is good to move forward, I trust them. And create all the awareness you might need to get all your stakeholders behind you. They are all aware of what's going on, so do this communication, it's really important. And then get some metrics, like how do you know if everything is going well with your release if you don't get any metrics and actually use it as a baseline, or see how if you have any bottlenecks or anything that you might need to improve on. So you do all of this, you use all these techniques, you could use even more. There's a lot of things that I could have put here that would be here for the entire night. These are the main ones that I think are good as a kickoff. But if you do all of this, I think you'll be able to achieve the ultimate painkiller from my point of view. So this for me is the ultimate painkiller. If you want to make your releases less painful, this is the way to go. So those techniques actually make this possible, and give you more confidence into achieving this continuous delivery, okay? Because you would get to deliver value faster, make sure that you increase, of course, the platform, reliability and stability, and you would recover much faster. If you have an incident, if you have an issue, it's way faster to recover if you do use any of those techniques I've mentioned before. And you're sure that you're actually building the right product because you get faster feedback. If you do all of this, you deliver value incrementally and small changes and iteratively, you would get feedback much faster. And all of these techniques actually help you achieve this, which for me helps everyone, I hope. And for me, it's the ultimate painkiller. So these are all the techniques that I wanted to share with you and show you a little bit of our background in the exchange. We could stay here all night. I would really enjoy talking about this for the entire night. But I think the main thing I wanted to share with you is how we do things in our context. what we have been feeling and how we are fixing some of those things, but also some other things that we are considering, that we're trying to get there. It's a long path, but we're trying to get there. So hopefully it helps someone that's not already using them. And if you are, give us feedback. It's important to share. So thank you. Feel free to ask any questions.